Well, we're ready to start the Heart Mini Pillow. And this is a picture of the mini pillow, and I wasn't able to get a full view, but I did want you to take a look at how the stars on the flag pillow behind it fit in nicely. So when you go to sew that piece in with the other parts of the flag piece, make sure that you follow the 1/4 inch seam line. Alrighty, so I'm just going to close this out, and then I am going to share my computer screen. So here we go. Now, what you see here is what I finished in the first video, and that is the flag pillow. And what I did is I rearranged the pieces, and I like to keep the pieces closest to the edge if possible. Makes it a little bit more accurate. So what you see here is if I move this one down just a little bit, I can now determine the size of my fabric that is going onto the mat. And basically, since this is a 1-inch grid, I just count the grids. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I will cut a piece of fabric that's 4 by 5 of the blue fabric, and I will put it wrong side down against the upper right hand corner of the 12 by 24 mat. Directly below it, I will place a piece of white glitter flex face down or shiny side down, which is the carrier sheet, and that is also 5 by 4. So I cut the piece 5 by 4 for the white HTV glitter vinyl. Okay, now with the stripes, remember we wanted to keep the stripes going one way, and in this case, I have it set up for parallel. And so if you can imagine, all of the pieces and the stripes are lined up. Now, what I did is I tried to offset this bit of slightly so that when I sewed it together, that there wasn't an obvious large color line where the two of them had stitched together. So you can play around with it, but essentially what I'm going to do is if I just box select these, let's see if I grouped it. Nope, I didn't group it. So let me just do a box select, second icon on the left. And now I can see, let me move this a bit, and I can see with a ruler, see the gray part there on the ruler? That's the size of the actual pieces. So if I start at 0 and I cut an 18-inch wide piece of striped fabric, that should fit. Then I cut it by 8, because if you look here, then you can see also that it's just below 0 and it's about 7 1/4. So I always round up. So that's how I calculate the size of the pieces that I'm going to cut. And remember to starch the fabric first and let it dry. Once you press it, it stiffens up, and then place it down onto your mat. Cut it correctly and place it down onto your mat. All righty. So now we'll go on to the next one, which is the heart. So the easiest way to do that is to go up here to the home screen, and it's the icon for the crafting. So I'm just going to click on that. It'll ask me if I want to save it, and yes, I can save it if I want to. But for today, I'm just going to close without saving. And you'll see that I have my screen again, and it's showing all of my projects that I'm working on. I love making paper flowers, so that's what you see right here are a few of my paper flower designs. And what I'm going to do again is determine what size mat I need. And I might be able to get away with 12 by 12 on this one. So let me just start with a canvas of 12 by 24. Remember, this is just our workspace. I could even make it 12 by 15 if I choose to. All righty. So now we're going to cut the shapes of the heart pillow first, and then I'm going to show you how to make the paper or the freezer paper pattern. So the first piece is the upper section, which is the blue, and I'm going to go down here to the shapes, and then I am going to click on shape, and I'm going to click on the square. I'm going to select advanced, and then I'm going to unlock the proportions, and my width is 6 and my height is 3. So 3 by 6. Okay. And then I am going to lock those so it doesn't resize it. And let's see what happens. There it is. And did you see when you just touch it, it pops up with a measurement. So now I'm going to put that right up here. I'm going to change this color to blue. Remember, we're sticking with the colors that I've assigned to the different fabrics. All right, there's my blue. And oh, the one thing I want to re-explain is right here are your colors and your color palette. The top row are the colors that I've recently used. And so you notice that I use the light gray for the stripe fabric, and then the white for the glitter flex, and then the dark blue for the one piece and pillow number 1. Okay, now for the stripes, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. So we are going to make the backing, and the backing is very simply 6.5 by 6. So if you remember, I love the shortcuts, and it's Control plus D as in dog, or Command plus D. So I am going to select Control and D. You have to have your block highlighted or the software doesn't know what you want to duplicate. Then I'm going to put it over here, and since this is a stripe, I am going to go back and select our colors, and that light gray is my stripe. So currently, when I go over to the transform screen, I now see that it's 3 inches tall and 6 inches wide. I am going to make it 6.5 inches tall. Alrighty, so 6.5, and my proportions are locked. So let's see what happens if it changes. Yes, it did. So what it did is because I changed it, it resized it proportionately. So now I'm going to unlock it and change this to 6. Now, that's long. See how it's longer than it is wide? And that's exactly what I want. Now, I didn't talk about previously the disabled resizing. So I am going to slide that over. And what that does is it keeps this from being accidentally resized. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I turn it off and I go to grab it, and all of a sudden, my cursor's right there, it resizes it. So I'm going to go back, undo's my friend, and then I'm back to 6.5 by 6. I'm going to slide that up, and then I'm going to disable that resizing. So now, once it's 6.5 by 6, it's staying 6.5 by 6. Now, I want to show you something else that you can do, which does help you um, to visualize which way your fabric's going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a shape. No, actually, I don't want a shape. I want a vertical line. There's my vertical line. And I am going to make the vertical line a little bit longer just by dragging it. I am going to go back over to the path, and instead of cut, I'm going to change this to a guide. And the guide color is now red, but I'm going to bring this lever all the way to the right, and then let's see if it shows up. So it just barely shows up, but it's enough for you to remember that this is the way you want your stripes to go, up and down. Now, when you take that guide, let's see if we can attach it. So I'm going to go over here to Box Select, and I'm going to attach it. And it's really very faint. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe if I change the color, you can see it. And that's the only reason I'm changing the color is so you can see it. There, now you can see it. A guide does not cut, does not draw, it does not do anything. It's just a visual helper. All right, so now I have this one going up like this. So the stripe that goes this way is sewn to another, I'm sorry, this is a solid. The solid piece is sewn to a striped piece, and that piece is 4 by 6. So I'm just going to click on this one, and I'm going to do Control D again. Now remember, with copy and paste, if I copy it and then I paste it, it pastes it right on top. And you don't know that until you try perhaps to drag it over it like that. Or I'll undo because I want to show you another way to figure that out. Is go to the film strip, and there it is. There's your second copy. Here's your first copy, and there's your second. So now I'll pull this down, and to avoid confusion, I'm going to turn this to white. And also I am going to put, we have to change the size too before we put the guide on. And the size is 4 inches tall and 6 inches. All righty, there you go. 4 by 6. Now what I'm going to do, whoops, is first of all, I'm going to lock it. And I don't want it moving on me. Oh, wait, oops, never mind. I got to disable it. So it's now I can change it. And if I slide it over, then it disappears. That's what I wanted to show you. Then I will take the vertical line again. This time I'll drag it over here. I'm going to request that they make these guides bolder so we can actually see them. And then I'll go over here to cut, change it to a guide, and slide over the opacity, yes, that word. And now I can see that my stripes have to go up and down like this. And I am going to use box select, draw a box around both that and the guide. And as you can see down here in the film strip, I grab both of them. And then I'm going to attach it. If I welded it, it would just become one. So I want to make sure that I attach. Alrighty. So we have those two, actually two stripe pieces and the solid. And chances are when I go to set this up, I would pull this solid piece of blue down here and slide this up here. See, to make sure that my stripe piece is going this way. Yes, you'll have some waste right here underneath this piece. Don't be putting this over here unless you want to cut two separate pieces. So I'll put this, well, I'll put this here for now. I'll rearrange everything when I'm done. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to create the heart that was the pattern that you found in your printed pattern. And check your supply list because I have the link there where you can download the PDF. So with that in mind, I am going to go to Draw and Paint. And my Draw and Paint, I don't know if you can see this, but right here is my Draw and Paint. And it opens it up. And I have to grab that in the screen share. So let me get that one to share. Okay, there we are. And when I do my digitizing, I do use a scanned image. Now, sadly, my scanner broke. So I was in a little funk because I didn't want to spend money on a printer because the printer worked. So I decided that I would try and take a picture of it and see if it worked. Well, it did. So I have given you the scans in a separate folder so that you can practice this too for those of you that have Draw and Paint. And this will just give you one step closer to learning how to make your own SVGs so that you can cut out designs with your Memento cutter. So insert. And instead, I'm not going to do shape. I could, because there is, actually there's more than one heart. Let's see, where'd I go? Past it? Yeah. See, there's 3 hearts. But none of these look like the pattern. And I was definitely stuck on making sure it looked like the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to Insert File. I am going to go into my folder, my Singer Memento folder, and into my America Mini Pillows. And you see the folder right here called Scanned Images. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on the heart pattern. Now, this size, I measured it, is actually 1/4. I'll show you how another way to measure too. You can get length, and you can just drag this from side to side, and it says 3.768. Well, that's the wrong size because in the paper pattern, the width is actually 5. So what I have to do is I'm going to go over to the paint side of Draw and Paint, and I'm going to click off this shape because I want to make my own box select around it. And in doing it this way, I can get rid of most of the lettering. Not all of it, but a good portion of it. Let me see if I can get it. Oop, I don't want to do that. Undo. All right, because now I want to make sure that it fits in this box. Now, one of the things that I didn't talk about is how did I resize the grid background. And what I did is I went into view and I can resize my canvas. Right now it fits a 200 by 200 hoop, and I can resize my canvas, and I'm going to make it 152 by 152 because I know that one's 6 inches. I'm going to keep the original scale. And now my little heart, which I have to go back into paint to grab, is right there. Now, because I selected in my view the grid, so I have the grid size as 50 millimeters, so it's half an inch. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click on paint again, and then I am going to slide my heart up to the corner as close as I can get it. And I'm going to drag the width. And if you count 5, I'm going to try and get it as close as I can. So I have a 5-inch width from here to here. Now I measured it and it was 4 3/4. So remember, each one of these is an inch. 1, 2, so 3, 4, and almost 5. I'm going to guess. Doesn't have to be really exact because after all, it's just a pattern. This is not a quilt. It's a pillow. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this over and center it. Now, do you see right here these little diamond shapes with a circle? That's the center. And you can play with that. I'm just going to do this so I don't mess it up. And then I'm going to go over to draw. Okay, there's my shape. Now, you can actually do a trace. If you go over here into the draw section, this is where you're going to draw your nodes. And remember that a node is the same as a needle entering into the fabric. But in our case, it's going to be the rotary blade using that to cut the shape. If I click on this one, trace area and hole, this is trace area, this is trace line. I want trace area and hole. And I bring it over here and it turns green. That's not going to work. Say, I want to get it so it's purple. And then click it. And that is the shape. And I can turn off the fill. So all I have now is the line. But you see the problem right here? The problem is the lettering. So in this case, what I would do is actually plot the points. So I'm going to go back. And I'm going to go back here to draw, and this is a point draw, and I can do a Bezier draw, but I'm going to stick with the point draw because this is just an easy shape. To get a square corner, you're going to hold down the Shift key and left click with your mouse. Release the Shift key to get a curve or a smooth path. And I'm just left clicking each time. Left click, left click. And I can fine tune it after as well. And I am going to cut I'm sorry, I'm going to hold the shift key down and then release it and continue with curved shapes or smooth nodes. I'm going to ignore these markings because I can just refer to the pattern for that. And then I'm going to bring it right over here. I'm going to left click, and there's my shape. Remember, I turned off the fill. I'm actually going to change, let's see if it'll change it. It probably only there. Now it's black. And I could change the thickness of the line, but actually this is pretty good. So I have a few little oopses right out here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this section, which is actually the points, and that turns on the points. And now I can move these points. So I just put my cursor over the circle and just kind of play around with. This is pretty simple. This was pretty simple for me to learn because this is very similar to some of the digital programs I work with. Okay. Now, if I click on this square, watch what happens. It holds it. But if the square was over here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a minute, then it would change it to a circle or smooth mode. All right. Not bad. Sometimes I just slide these little nodes around until it fits nicely onto the line or the pattern. I try to get as close as I can to the pattern. Okay, so then I can also delete nodes. If I want to go over here, I can click on the delete nodes, and I can delete a node just by, see how the cursor turns to a minus? Then I can delete that node. I can go back over here and I can insert a point. So as I was trying to show you before, if I insert a point by holding down the shift key, it becomes a square. And what happens is this is a pretty, it straightens out the line, and that's not what we want. We want a smooth line. So what I'm going to do is I made the error of clicking on it again to smooth it out, but then it just adds another node. So you want to turn that off and go back and edit points. So I'm just going to turn that into a smooth node. Well, it didn't do it. Well, let me change that to a, so let me just delete this. I'll add a smooth node, then I'll move it. Okay, there you go. So now I will go back to my path right here is my heart. There it is. I'll click off of it. Back to what I usually do is I go up here to this area right here in the select and I select none. And it gets rid of the nodes. And then I can actually see if it's what I want. And it is. So the first thing I'll do is I'll save as, and that is a drawn paint file. So I'll rename this as heart. And it becomes a file that's carries the format of drawn paint as its extension. Then I'm going to export picture. And I want to point out too that you can actually go from your scanner or your camera and bring it in. But I just scanned it and saved it as a JPEG. Well, I didn't scan it. I'm sorry. I took a picture of it as a JPEG and then brought it in just like you saw me do earlier. So export picture, and you'll notice it turned it into a PNG. Well, I don't want it as a PNG. I want it as a scalable vector graphic. So I'm going to click that. And I don't want it to go into my Sonnet folder. I want it to go into my Sanger Memento folder and scanned images. And there it is, my heart and the SVG. And that's exactly how you make an SVG design for the Memento software. All right, now we're going to load that into the Memento. So I'm going to turn off Draw and Paint. And I am going to go back to sharing the software, the Creativate. Okay, here we are. We're back to the heart pattern pieces, and I am going to go to File, and I'm going to insert. That's one way of doing it. I'm going to insert it from the device. And remember where I put it? I put it in my American Mini Pillows scanned image folder. And there's my heart. Now you see it's an S, and that's the silhouette. And what I do is, in order to determine what it looks like, I associate my SVG files with the Silhouette machine. I no longer have the Silhouette machine, but I do have the Silhouette software because I have the business edition and it has a lot of helpful ways that I can use it. If you do this at home, it will carry with it the SVG file as whatever your, oh gosh, I can't think of the word, but whether it be Google or Edge, Microsoft Edge or Firefox or Safari, it will carry that extension. Alrighty, so I'm just going to open that up. Now, see what it does? It comes into the insert image screen and you have all of these options that you can do with it. But we want to save it and convert it to a cut path. We want the machine to cut it. And I'm going to click OK. And there it is, right there. Now, to avoid confusion, I am going to turn these back to gray, because you can see we're going to end up with some confusion here by having all the same colors. And I could have highlighted both of them and turned them both to gray at once. So there's that. Remember that. Okay, now you can actually see, now that you know what you're looking for, what that red line is. Now, what I want to do here is I want to check the measurements, because it doesn't always come in correctly. So you see it's 4.937. So I'm going to have to change that, and the height needs to be 5. So what I'm going to do is I have unlocked proportions. So I'm going to change this to 5 and this to 4.75. Alrighty. Now that doesn't look right, but let's see if it is. When I click on it, yep, 4.8 by 5. Okay, it rounded it up. Now I'm going to disable the resizing. There. So if it doesn't look right to you, then just actually decide whether it looks right or not by checking the sizing, the actual sizing. And that's in the transform screen. This is the square with the little squares around it. Now you'll notice what I did is I aligned the top of my heart with the top of a grid line. All right, because I measured on the paper pattern from the top of the heart down to the seam placement line, and that's really important. And the seam placement line is approximately 1 7/8, yeah, 1 3/4. It's not going to make a big difference. It'll just, that's the size of the blue part. But what I want to do is I want to get a horizontal line and see what the horizontal line looks like. And I want to count down 1 inch and maybe what I think is 3/4. Now, if you want, you can change the grid, but I'm not changing the grid just for this. It's rather insignificant. Okay, now there is my set line, but what it's going to do right now is cut, and I don't want it to cut it. I want to draw a line, and I am going to use my pen, and I am going to pick the marker with the 0.4 millimeters and change it to black. Okay, and it shows me that the material color is white and the pen color is black. And I'm going to do a box select. And I am going to attach that. Now you notice I drew it a little wider than it is, the heart, a little wider than the heart shape. And I want to go to attach, which is under the multiple select, and attach it. Okay, so essentially what this will do is draw a line right over that freezer paper. And when you put the freezer paper down, you're going to put the freezer paper shiny side down on the mat. And what I actually did is I created a file with all the specialty material pieces together. And then I was able to just cut those as one mat because they use those cut files use the basic blade. So I will show you that in some pictures on your directions for you. All right, so now we're ready to go. I'm going to move this over here out of the way so I can cut right down here. I'm going to cut a 4 by 6 inch piece of fabric for the corner. I'm going to cut a 6 by 6 inch piece of freezer paper. And then I am going to allow for the fabric to be a little bit bigger. So I am going to go 8 inches down by probably 14 inches wide. 13 inches is just too close for comfort for me. Okay, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to file, save as, and yes, I like to cut paper flowers a lot. And I am going to go into my individual pillow design files. And it's the 2-heart pillow. And it says it already exists. And do you want to replace it? And I don't, because you already have that. Okay, so then I'll just cancel it. But that's where you're going to save it, in a folder with all the individual pillows. Whoops, no, I want to cancel. Good thing it beeped at me. All righty, so that will complete this one. And again, for the next one, what I will do is I will go up to the crafting icon right here and select the clean screen, basically. You can also, if you want to, if you're worried about saving over it or something along those lines, but I can just click delete, but I want to tell the software I want to delete it all. And that's another way of getting rid of the file. So now I'm moving on to the next pillow, and the next pillow is the, let me tell you, USA pillow. Yes? No. No, the star pillow. That's an easy one too. So the next one is a star pillow. I'll see you there.